Okay, good evening, everybody, and hopefully you are hearing this. Just having a few technical issues here as we start up, which I guess is not untypical for a live streaming event. And we are coming live from San Diego this evening. Um, Apparently the stream is starting, although I do have a monitor PC up at the moment and it's only just kicking in. So we've got a little bit of delay on the stream. So for those that who are not familiar with me, my name is Gary Hawkins. I'm a member of the San Diego Astronomy Association. And actually, I'm joined by my daughter this evening, who is probably one of the youngest members of the San Diego Astronomy Association Club. She is on a second microphone. So, Joy, why don't you say hello to everybody out there, please?
Hello, everybody.
And what's your name?
My name's Joy.
And how long have you been a member of the San Diego Astronomy Association? About 1 year?
1 year.
Yes, fantastic. So that's kind of cool, and you're kind of the youngest member of the association, right? Which is very neat. So I'm going to start off this evening. I usually do a quick PowerPoint presentation at the beginning of the live stream just to sort of set the scene. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this evening because many of you who've listened to the video before will know a lot of this information. If you're interested in obviously looking at the information, obviously on the when you do a playback on YouTube, just stop and hold each one of the slides. So as I said, my name's Gary Hawkins and I'm with the San Diego Astronomy Association. I am located north of the city of San Diego, on the San Diego city border, just close with the city of Poway. And I'm in Bortle 8 skies here this evening, so not particularly good viewing conditions. But with EAA and some of the techniques we're using, we're able to overcome those. Today's setup, I'm going to be using a C8 SMIC Cassegrain. With that, I'm going to be using a 0.63 focal reducer and a ZW0533 MC cooled camera. I also have an e-viewer running that you can see on the slide. So we'll be using that to make sure that I'm not like pointing the telescope at the trees and stuff.
You playing up, Daddy?
I do have a Optolong CCD CLS filter in to knock some of the sky glow down. And I'm going to primarily be using SharpCap this evening to do our workflow. And with SharpCap, we're going to be capturing images from the 553, pre-processing with a flat and a dark, aligning and stacking those images, and then producing our final output in hopefully about 2 to 5 minutes. Here is a list of the equipment and software that I'm using. We're going to be using all of these tools extensively this evening. And I'm running at an effective focal length of about 1311 millimeters, which gives me a field of view of 0.5 times 0.5 degrees. And I'm going to be running 12-second subs this evening. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask them on the chat box. And nice to see you online there, Patrick, and thanks for joining this evening. This was kind of a last minute thing, so I'm not expecting too many online viewers, but hopefully the video will get picked up by a few more people when it goes for playback. And as I said earlier, I'm a member of the San Diego Astronomy Association, and you can find us on Facebook, and you can also find me on YouTube. Just search for my name, Gary Hawkins, and EAA, and that will get you to some of my previous EAA presentations. And I'm kind of laughing here because my daughter thinks this is extremely funny to be out here this evening, and she's sticking her tongue out at me. So anyway, we will start the presentation proper here. So let me just come out of PowerPoint. And I will now go into, well, first of all, I'm going to show you my eFinder. And my daughter's, like I said, sitting next to me. She can see the telescope is pointing up somewhere to the northeast. And you can actually see an HF radio antenna. It's the white object there that's shining at the side of the image. We're kind of looking over that up into the northeastern sky. And I'm actually on a target at the moment. I'm on the star cluster NGC 7510 in the constellation of Cepheus. So I'm now going to go into SharpCap. I'm going to go to my main camera here, and I am going to start a live stack so that we can actually see this target in some detail. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to switch off one of my video feeds here. I'm going to take the video capture feed off so that we've got full real estate available. I'm just going to check all my settings in SharpCap. The 533MC ZWO camera is a square format camera, 3000 by 3000 pixels. I'm running 12-second subs, as I said. I'm running this at a gain of about 400, which is slightly higher than most people recommend, but I tend to find it works for me. And I'm actually, because this is a cooled camera, I'm actually running this camera at -5 centigrade. So we have our first image coming up. I'm just going to go to the adjustment bars in my SharpCap screen and bring those across. I'm also going to do a color balance by clicking here on the auto color balance, which should bring the histograms together. And as I said, this is our first target this evening. It's NGC 7510 in the constellation of Cepheus. Now, one of the things that I do like to do is I am a huge fan, as my daughter will know, won't you, Joy? You've got to speak into the microphone, darling. Because we've read this book quite a lot at bedtime, haven't we? So I have a copy of Burnham's Celestial Handbook, an observer's guide to the universe beyond the solar system, written by Robert Burnham Jr. And Robert Burnham was a staff member at the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona, and conceived the idea of the Celestial Handbook in about the 1950s. And he put together this incredible 3-volume set, which I use a lot when I'm observing, and my daughter also finds very interesting when I read it to her at night, don't you?
Yes.
And you are getting quite used to listening to Robert Burnham's commentary of the universe, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to take a quick look at the Celestial Guide this evening. And we're going to use some of the information in that Celestial Guide to get us onto the targets that we're going to be looking at. And just to give you some context to what I'm doing this evening, last night I actually looked at a number of different targets with binning of 2x2 on. I've actually gone back to 1x2 binning this evening, and my goal is to capture a number of images and do a comparison between those images. So with this open cluster, it's now forming quite nicely on the screen. I'm just going to do a little bit of a final adjustment here with the bottom histogram. think we're getting pretty close to a good picture here. I'll also bring it up full screen as well so that you can, and I'll drop that back a little bit so that you can see this particular cluster. And of course, the one thing I've managed to forget to do is I have forgot to put in the NGC number into SharpCap, which is kind of annoying because one of the funny little bugs in SharpCap at the moment is if you don't enter the NGC number in the target name box before you stack, it won't allow you to rename it. So I'm actually going to have to go in and just put in the target name NGC 7510, and I'm going to clear my stack, and I'm just going to let this run for about 10 images. So we're going to collect 120 seconds, so 2 minutes worth of images of this particular star cluster before we move on to the next target. So the stack has reset, and we're now going to let that stack form. And what do you want to add something here at this point, Joy? Go on then.
I have galaxies in my room.
Actually, you have a complete representation of the solar system on your bedroom wall, don't you?
Yeah, and there's a few galaxies.
And there's a few galaxies as well. I know we have the constellations up there, right? We have okay, and we have Orion as well, don't we?
I got the Orion Nebula. It's not in the same place as it was in the skies. I moved it right close to the sun, so it might have been confusing for you guys to see the Orion Nebula up in the sky.
Fantastic job, Joy. But she is correct. She actually has the sun and all of the planets up on her bedroom wall. They're in fluorescent green neon, aren't they? So at night they shine. And then we've got a number of the constellations up there as well. And she has a few galaxies as well. So every night she goes to bed, she can, before she falls to sleep, and she's only 5.5 here, she can actually look up her bedroom wall and see all of this on the wall and the ceiling, can't you, darling?
Well, maybe not all the wall and ceiling. Most of it's on my closet.
Oh, okay. And you've been putting some on your closet as well. Okay, fine business. So, having said that, it's kind of fun here. This is the first time I've actually tried to do an online presentation with my daughter, so hopefully it's working out okay. Let me just check the audio balance. The audio balance seems to be working okay. So here we have NGC 7510. As I said, it's an open star cluster. The image is just about formed now. I'm going to blow that image up a little bit. I'll shrink my histogram down so that it goes to full screen. And there you can see our first image for this evening, which we've captured. It's quite a nice image. It's a kind of unusual elongated star cluster, but kind of fun. And if you actually look at the image here, you can actually see a couple of double star candidates towards the top right-hand side of the image. We have one here and one over here. So what are you about to say, Joy? Okay, well, my daughter's whispering at the moment, which is, of course, not helping the microphone. So if you want to say something, you need to speak up. Apparently not. Okay, so I'm now going to take a look at some different targets. So in order to work out which targets I looked at last night, I'm just going to go back into my target database. And what I actually do when I'm doing my imaging is I will save each one of the best images of each one of the targets that I see in what's called my target database, and that allows me to keep a record of what I've got and keep the best pictures of what I've managed to image. So the next target that we're going to look at this evening is a galaxy, and it's NGC 278. So in order to bring that target up, I am going to go into Carte de Ciel, which is my preferred sky map program. So NGC, of course I've forgotten the number, 278. So let me, okay, NGC 278. I'm going to select that target. And for those of you who are not familiar with Carte de Ciel, much like Stellarium, it's a package that allows you to map the night sky and see what targets are available to you. One of the things I like about it is you're able to define your horizon. And so you can see the horizon that I have available to me from my location in San Diego, which is extremely limited. But the NGC 278 is actually in view. I'm now going to slew to that target. And you can see the big square moving across towards the target. And, hopefully it's going to... Ooh, something went wrong there. Yeah, okay, so got something wrong there. So let me... okay, let me try NGC 185 then. Because that... Okay, let's try this. NGC 185. Okay, so NGC 185 is indeed in my viewing window, so I'm going to slew to that target. So the mount's now just settling into position. I'm sorry to hear, Patrick, that you got clouded out again this evening. That's disappointing for sure. So NGC 185 is now, I've now got the C8 pointing at that target. So I'm going to go back into Sharp Cap, and I'm going to, first of all, do the plate solver just so that I can make sure that this target is right in the center of the screen. And while we're waiting for the plate solver to acquire the next frame and process that, my daughter is here at the microphone being a little silly, and I think soon she's going to be going to bed, aren't you, sweetie? No, you disagree with that? Okay. Well, let's see as I continue this evening's viewing. So we are now letting the plate solver just, it's solve for this particular target. It's found a suitable number of sources, so we should find that in a couple of minutes it solves, and it will now readjust the mount to give us this target smack in the center of the screen. So it's just done that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to, I'm going to go into live stacking. I'm going to clear my live stack. And of course I need to put the new name of this target in, which is NGC 185. So let me just do that. NGC 185. And I am going to clear the live stack again so that we get this target name associated with the live stack. And it will now start to capture images of this galaxy NGC 185, which from memory is a relatively small, fairly distant elliptical galaxy. We're not going to see too much structure in this. It's basically going to be an elliptical shape where we hopefully will see the extent of the elliptical outline of the galaxy. And we are now collecting images. We're going to probably need to get probably 10 or 15 images of this target in order to um, get a decent picture. So at this point, I'm going to take my daughter inside and hand her over to my wife for a few moments so that she can head to bed and read a book, and then I will continue with the presentation. But for those of you online, please stand by, and I will be right back with you in a couple of minutes. So can you say good night to everybody online, Joy? Can you say good night? Come on, now.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, so Joy's saying good night. Like I said, she's one of the youngest members of the San Diego Astronomy Association, and she may even be joining me next week when we are doing a live stream event from Mount Helix, starting at the same time. So I'm just going to briefly take her inside now, and I will be right back with you in a couple of, in 30 seconds or so. Okay, well, I'm back with everybody. Sorry for the brief delay there. Just got my daughter inside, and she is now with mum, and she'll be heading to bed fairly shortly. Like I said, this is a pretty small elliptical galaxy, so we're going to need to zoom in somewhat. And here we have the galaxy. And I must admit, it is not showing as well as it did last night. So I'll just try and adjust the histogram and everything here to get a slightly better picture. But you can see the elliptical nature of the galaxy. It actually spreads over an area of about this big. And obviously what you're seeing in terms of the stars are the stars in our galaxy, which are in front of it. And you're seeing the light from this galaxy coming through the star field of the Milky Way. So we've now stacked about 3 minutes and 38 seconds of NGC 185 here. I'm actually just going to put this in black and white and see if it looks a little better. Difficult to say. It's not the greatest of images here, but as I said, I was actually looking at some fairly small galaxies last night as part of this experiment to investigate ×1 and ×2 binning and see how that worked out. Just to note that we are aligning frames. You can obviously see the align frames set here. I'm also applying a FWHM filter, and that just ensures that any image that is slightly out of focus is discarded, as indicated by the red image here. So it's basically dropped 1 frame in 21 frames here. I find this useful as well, just to get rid of the odd frame where, maybe a cloud has drifted over, or there's a little bit of vibration on the stand, or something like that. But anyway, going back to this image, as you can see, it's a pretty faint elliptical galaxy. So I think I probably collected enough information on this particular target to do a comparison with the one that I captured last night. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to save it exactly as seen, and I'm probably going to save it in both black and white and color. So I'm going to go over back to my histogram. I'm going to bring my color back in here, and I'll just save it like that, I think. Okay. So while that's saving, I'm also now going to go back into OBS. I'm going to switch off the second microphone that my daughter was using. So now hopefully if there was any echo, there isn't any echo now. And we're just back to the my own microphone, which is a headset. Okay, so if I now go back to last night's viewing, we've looked at NGC 185. Another galaxy that I viewed last night was NGC 7479. So I'm going to go into Carte de Seal, NGC 7479. And it's kind of interesting this evening. This is the first time that I've been running probably quite as many packages as I've got running tonight, and I can actually see a little bit of delay in the reaction of some of the programs like Carte to Seal. So it's going to be interesting to revisit the live stream when it goes online here, and just to see if there is any delays or break in the audio, etc., etc. If any of you guys out there do see that, if you could let me know in the chat box, that would be fantastic. So that target is slightly out of view as well. So let's try NGC 7217 and see if that is in my field of view. So NGC 7217. Okay, so as we can see, NGC 7217 is well within my field of view. It's actually in the constellation of Pegasus. So I am going to slew over to that target. So the mount I'm using this evening is a Celestron AVX mount. I must admit this mount is kind of tired. It's certainly not a mount you would want to do any astrophotography with. It won't guide for love nor money, but it's fine when used for EAA. That's one of the advantages of EAA. You can actually use some fairly straightforward equipment and get some decent images. So I'm now actually on NGC 7217. I am going to go back into SharpCap. Got selected the wrong SharpCap. I'm going to go into the instance that's looking at my main camera. I'm going to put in the name NGC 7217. And the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a quick plate solve to make sure that I get my target right in the center of my half-degree field of view. So I was just going to capture the first image for that. It's started to, first of all, it will downsample, take it to a slightly smaller image, and then it will extract the sources. As long as that number comes up over about 700, typically I find the plate solver will solve. So here we got 973 sources, so we should have no problem solving here. So now we just wait the 10 or 15 seconds it takes for the all sky plate solver to do its business. We're about 0.19 degrees off of center, so the mount is now readjusting its position. And now that the mount's readjusted its position, I can clear the stack and we can go look at this image, and hopefully it will appear right in the center. Okay, so yes, the image, it is right in the center, but unfortunately the mount was still moving a little bit during that last thing, so we'll just clear the stack again. And this is our target. Now, this is an extremely small galaxy, um, and I will hopefully be able to give you a little bit of information from Burnham's Celestial Guide here, which is how I first came across this target. So I need to go to the constant. And Burnham's Celestial Guide is actually arranged according to constellations. So we're in the constellation of Pegasus. And I will look for 7217. And there's actually a number of really interesting galaxies here that we're going to go look at. So, um, yes, so there's a number of interesting galaxies that we're going to go look at in this particular constellation. And this, unfortunately, is probably one of the smallest ones. So we're not going to get a great deal of detail, but again, it will just start us off in the right direction. So this is a many-armed spiral galaxy in the constellation of Pegasus. It actually consists of a pretty bright central core, which you can quite clearly see here, and then the spiral arms surround it, which are here. Now, obviously, because of both the seeing and the relatively small size of the instrument I'm using, we're not going to see a huge amount of detail in the spiral arms here, but we'll give it a few 20 or so frames here and see what sort of detail we can pull out of it. And I'll probably drop it into black and white. I might get a little bit more detail out of it in black and white, and I'll make it smaller because typically when you make the image smaller, you tend to see a little bit more of the information. So let's see if we can pull something out of here. Okay, so yeah, so this is like I said, a many-armed spiral galaxy. Is completely at 90 degrees to us, so it's face on. Um, and this is 7217, isn't it? I just got to make sure I get the right galaxy here, because there are quite a number of galaxies in Pegasus. So I want to make sure I get the if I'm going to read you back what Burnham wrote about one of these targets, I want to make sure I get the right piece, and that isn't the right piece available at the moment. So we will just let this settle for another couple of frames here, and I will then just store the picture away so that I can do a comparison with the binning. And as you can see, I've got my binning set to 1 here at the moment. So that's probably about as much detail as we are going to get. So I'm just going to save that image away. And as long as I've got these target names correctly here, what SharpCap does is create a folder for each one of these targets. So it's very easy afterwards to go back in and look at these targets and know what target you've been looking at. So I'm going to save that. So now I'm actually going to go towards and this one's kind of a really interesting one. This is Galaxy NGC 7814 that I imaged last night. This one is an interesting galaxy. Unlike the last galaxy, this one is completely edge on as opposed to being at 90 degrees. So we will get a completely different perspective of the galaxy, and the galaxy should be in view. It's fallen in the right place on my horizon, so I'm going to slew my mount. And for those of you who have joined the stream late, thanks very much for joining. If you can drop your name in the chat box, that would be fantastic with your location. It just gives me an idea of who I've got online. So we're just moving on to Galaxy NGC 7814. And this is an example of a precisely edge-on galaxy, and it shows a predominant equatorial dust line, as you will see in a few moments, because it actually did image reasonably well last night, even though it's fairly small. So we've moved the mount into position. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick plate solve to get my target exactly right in the center. I got my name set correct. Oh, no, I haven't actually. I got to set my name correctly up in the target name window. So 7814. It's just going through the plate solving process now. It's extracting the sources, and hopefully we will see a number of sources something greater than 700, in which case it's likely to solve. So we'll just give that a second or so to, here we go, 963 sources, so this should solve. And once it solves, as it's just about to now, we've got an offset of about 0.6 degrees, so the mount will reposition itself by 0.6 degrees and the target will be right in the center. Now that the target's right in the center, I will clear my stack. Probably have to discard the first image because the mount was probably still moving. Yeah. Let me clear that first image. I can see my target come up in the center. And it will be interesting to see how this image compares to the one that I shot last night. And if this image is worse, I will certainly show you the image I shot last night. So first of all, let's just zoom in. Here is the galaxy. There's this image here. And this now is we're going to need a few images for this to form. But the good news is I can actually see the dust lane that runs through the center of the galaxy right here. And these are the bright upper and lower bulbs of the galaxy. It's, as I said earlier, it's a completely edge-on galaxy. So we're going to give this a few minutes to bring in a few more images into the stack, and we'll see how this forms. And there are a couple of other interesting objects out here as well in terms of galaxies. We're going to go look at the Deerlich, which is a triple galaxy cluster, triple or quadruple. And there's also a very nice spiral galaxy, which is NGC 7479, which is a S-shaped barred spiral galaxy as well. And we'll go look at that as well. So we'll just allow this to capture a few frames here. Of course, the other target, which is extremely famous in Pegasus that we will certainly take a look at before we leave, is M15, which is a pretty spectacular globular cluster. So we'll probably do that as our last target this evening, or certainly the last target that we're doing in Perseus anyway. So this image of NGC 7814 is now slowly forming. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And I think you can pretty clearly see, I'm going to try and adjust this image a little bit. Now, if you want to do small movements of the histogram in SharpCap, you actually press the Shift key before you actually attempt to pull either the black level, the mid level, or the white level, which is something that I seldom touch, in order to make it move slowly. So I've just moved the black level down a little bit, and now I'm going to pull the mid level back towards it, which will typically give us a little bit more detail. Okay, all right. And I'm probably going to stop there for the time being. So you can actually see here now, you can see the galaxy. Here is the central dust line going right through there. Here is the core, which is split by this central dust line. And if this image formed over a much longer period of time, or we were using much longer exposures and therefore allowing us to collect a few more photons, we would actually see this galaxy, the sort of top and bottom of the galaxy, extend over this central dust bar. And then the galaxy edges go out to about here and here. I'm actually looking at a photograph in Burnham's Celestial Guide, which was taken at the Mount Wilson Observatory. But of course, that was taken with a probably a 100-inch telescope, whereas what we're using tonight is a 1988, actually a 1998 C8. So this C8 is already 22 years old, but it's a very good tool for EAA when combined with the Celestron 0.63 focal reducer. So I think you can see we've got a pretty decent image of this galaxy now. I'm fairly happy with that. So I'm going to save a black and white image. I'm also going to just bring the color back into it. So that I can, yeah, okay. So let me take a look at that. Let me take the little bit of red out of that, perhaps. Yeah, I'm not sure that that necessarily shows any better in color than it does in black and white, but I will save this as a color image as well. And just so that we can perhaps do a quick on-the-fly comparison between 1 times 1 binning and 2 times 2 binning, I will take us to that image of this galaxy. So it was 7814. So this was the image I got last night with 2 times 2 binning. So more sensitivity but less resolution. And let's just zoom in. So I think, interestingly enough, if we look at this, we're certainly seeing a somewhat brighter core area, although clearly you can see that we've paid in terms of resolution. So it is kind of a bit of a trade-off between perhaps a slightly brighter image against a less defined image, stepping between the two, 1 times 1 and 2 times 2 on this particular optical train. That may not be the case for every optical train, but certainly for the way this is set up. So that was kind of an interesting exercise. Right, so I'm now going to look at another galaxy before we go to M15. And this is a rather spectacular, albeit fairly small, S-shaped barred spiral galaxy that lies about 3 degrees south of Alpha Persei. So the main star in the Pegasus constellation. So first of all, let me go to Cartesiel. Let me type in my target name, which is 7479. We're selecting our target, which is in view, so I should be able to slew the scope. I can take a quick look at the E-finder just to make sure that we've got a clear sky, and I can tell you just from looking at this and seeing a few stars around that we're not hitting any trees or anything. So I'll go now back to my main camera. I will now plate solve so that I can get the target in the center of the screen. I will get my target name correct. So 74. So NGC 7479. And once we have plate solved and the mount has realigned, then I will start a live stack. And I'm just, okay, so we found enough sources. The plate solve should come into effect in a couple of seconds. Here it goes. We were pretty close to the target in the first place, so the mount is just readjusting its position to give us a dead center target. And now I am going to clear my stack, and we will start collecting images of NGC 7497. And I'm just checking the questions. Good evening, JR. Nice to see you from the Madison, Wisconsin area. And it looks as though we've got Jim on board as well. So, Jim, nice to see you on board as well. Jim is from South Dakota. And as I said, I only put this notice out of this live stream probably about 3 hours ago. So I wasn't expecting too many people to go live. But I thought since I was actually doing a little bit of work with the telescope this evening, I might as well just stream it. And if people have got questions about SharpCap or any of the tools that I'm using, which is primarily CartSeal for the star map, CPWI, which is the Celestron plane wave mount control, and AllSky plate solver, which is what I'm using for plate solving this evening, please let me know. So we're beginning to collect images, and I'm going to need to re-clear my stack again because it grabbed the first image and then none of the others aligned. So I'm going to need to restart that stack, and let's see if this works. So the second image is critical here. If the second image comes in and stacks, then we're probably going in the right direction. If not, yes. So the second image is coming in and stacked. The third image is stacked. Okay, so we're good. So we're now going to, this is our target, this small galaxy here. And as you can see, it's not particularly big, probably less than 0.1 of a degree across. Probably more like about 6 arc seconds or something, I'm guessing. But hopefully this has got a nice shape to it. And also, oh, good to see you on board as well, Mike, from Death Valley. I caught your live stream the other day, which I actually enjoyed. So thanks for doing that from your end. I just wish I was under the same Bortle 2 skies that you enjoy. Unfortunately, it's Bortle 8 here, so yeah, I have a little bit more to contend with. But thanks for joining me. Right, so we've captured about 6 images here at the moment. Let me zoom in on this particular galaxy. Oh wow, and this is interesting because I without doubt got a better image of this galaxy yesterday. Let's see if I can get a little bit more detail going here. So I'm wondering whether this is an effect of the binning or whether this is an effect of just different seeing conditions this evening. And of course, when you're doing these types of tests, it's very difficult to, determine one thing from the other. So let me drop this into black and white. Let's zoom back a little bit because that usually, okay. And I'm going to do this a different way actually. So I'm actually, there is another way that you can adjust the histogram controls here. So I'm actually just going to bracket the main histogram here, and then I'm going to go up to the display histogram over here. I'm now going to move the display histogram dark. Come on. Apparently I didn't grab it there. I think it's coming this time. Apparently it doesn't want to come, but oh, there it goes. Okay, so I've got it everything's moving a bit slowly this evening. I'm thinking that I am probably uh, at the limit of what my PC will do here this evening. For some reason, it seems to be running a little slower than it normally does. So let me try, and I need to move this part of the display. There we go. In that direction. I'm basically, yeah, probably gone too far. I'm going to have to move it back again. Okay. Everything is running a little delayed this evening, which is making this difficult. So first of all, let me close the gap up between the midpoint and the black level on the display histogram. Right, I've done that. Now I'm going to move the black point across and try and get it aligned with the peak. Okay, almost there. Gonna need to go back a bit. Come on. Okay, let's try there. It's probably a little bit. Now I need to bring this back in towards the black level. Wow. Okay, so now I need to pull the black level across a little bit more. Come on. And for whatever reason, I am definitely struggling to get this all to operate in real time this evening, as you can easily see. Okay, that might get me close. All right, so let's just zoom back a little bit. Okay, so here is our current image, and it's actually showing a little bit better. I'm going to try and move this black level again. So this time I'm actually going to press the shift key, and I'm going to just try and pull it across slowly. There it goes. And I'm going to try again. Come on. Okay, all right. So as you can see, we have a distinct S-shaped galaxy here, and it is not showing up as well as it did the other night. Let me just try and nudge that way a little bit. There we go. Maybe a little more. Maybe I've gone too far now. But you can see the S-shaped galaxy in here. So I am going to save that. Let me show you the image I captured last night. So I need to just look at NGC 77479. This is kind of the learning process here as to what target spinning works for. Because I think, assuming that the seeing is the same, you would probably agree that last night's image is better. So let me bring that up. Here we go, 7479 right here. Oh, and I must admit, everything is running slowly tonight. So here's the image I captured last night of the same galaxy. This image size is only 1,000 and 1,500 by 1,500, because obviously it was 2 times binning and the original image was 3,000 by 3,000. But I think you will agree that this image definitely shows the spiral arms to more effect. So I think probably one of the conclusions is that binning for faint targets such as these galaxies is probably a good idea. But I can tell you for sure that bidding for the next target, which I'm going to go to, which is M15, is not a good idea. There do appear to be some issues here at the moment. It looks as though I may have briefly lost OBS, so I'm hoping this is all going to come back. So bear with me, guys. Um, Hopefully this will come back. I got to try and find out what has crashed first, but something obviously went down. My live stream is okay. Jerry, you went out for about 30-second broadcast streaming studio. OBS has reconnected. Okay. Okay. So we're coming back again. Sorry for this, guys. I appreciate this is a little frustrating. It's kind of frustrating at this end as well. Okay, we appear to be... Okay, we appear to be back, at least in the stream. Hopefully you can hear me. Right, so I'm now going to try and move to M15. So let me try and move to M15, which is a much more spectacular target than any of the ones we've been looking at so far. Okay, so we've got M15. It's in our viewing window. Oh, and it looks here as though the mount is actually going to do a meridian flip, which is fine. Had this been the case before I did plate solving, I would have been somewhat concerned because the point in accuracy would have been completely lost. But with plate solving, I can easily get the mount back into position again. So we're doing a meridian flip. The C8 is now literally pointing almost straight up in the air. We've just moved onto the target M15. So I'm going to go into sharp cap. I'm going to go up to my here. I'm going to change this target name. I am going to plate solve to try and get onto that target. So let's do that. And yes, Mike, I am very happy with the 533 MC. I think a cooled camera is a little bit of overkill for EAA, but it at least does give you the option of doing astrophotography in the future. And it certainly knocks the noise down completely. So if noise is a problem, and I do actually live in a fairly hot area of the country, and I do image from the desert quite a lot as well, where my sky conditions are a lot better, then I think there is some benefits of having the cooled camera, but a non-cooled camera is usually generally perfectly acceptable. Now, I don't know if you saw there, but by doing the meridian flip, my mount was off by 0.6 of a degree, which when you've only got a 0.5 degree field of view is a big error. And so without plate solving, that would have been potentially a big problem. But the mount has realigned itself, so I'm now going to clear the stack. And I'm kind of pleased that even though OBS appears to have fallen over twice here this evening, it's still managing to reconnect to YouTube and keep the stream going, which is good. Yes, and you can use the 533 uncooled as well. You obviously don't need to run the cooler. You can just leave it unplugged. But I do not do that. I run the cooler at... let me just reset that stack again. For some reason, it didn't grab the first frame. I do run the cooler, and it's running at -5 degrees at the moment. Huh. Okay, so we're ignoring frames. And here's the reason. So as you can see, I've got a FWHM filter set, and for some reason, pointing that high in the sky has actually gone above my set threshold. So I'm going to increase the threshold, reset the stack, and now it should grab the image. Oh, it's done it again. What's going on here? Okay, I'm going to turn that off. So let's just turn that filter off. There we go. So it's grabbed the first image of M15 here. Let's see if it grabs the second one. Yes, it's got the second one. So we're going to start building an image now of M15. And as you can see, M15 is a spectacular globular cluster. And one of the reasons I like just going back to Burnham, and if you haven't got a copy of Burnham, I would thoroughly recommend that you pick up a secondhand copy on eBay. They're generally available, the 3 volumes in good condition are generally available for about $40. And I've actually been lucky enough to buy 2 so far in literally pristine condition. I gave one to my brother, who's a little bit of an astronomer as well, and I've got the second one here. And I literally have Burnham with me every evening when I go out. So this is and there's an interesting story to Burnham that maybe I'll share in a few moments. And if I don't share tonight, I'll share at some point in the future. He was an interesting character. He was a very introverted character. He went about writing the Celestial Handbook literally off his own back. He published it privately, which at the time he did it, which was in the 60s, was very unusual. And then it was actually picked up by a publisher in the 70s and was published. Um, and there is an interesting backstory that actually involves the astronomy club that I'm a member of, which is the San Diego Astronomy Association. So, like I said, I may share that tonight, and if not, I'll share it perhaps on another evening. So Burnham wrote, M15 is one of the richer and more compact globulars, remarkable for its intense brilliance. And I think without a doubt here, you can see that we've already got a pretty spectacular image of M15. Its intense brilliance of the central core, where countless stars seamlessly crowd together into a blazing nuclear mass. The central condensation is some 20 arc seconds in diameter. According to H.B. Sawyer, 1947, M15 has a total apparent width of about 12 degrees, about 12 minutes, and an integrated spectral type of F3. Its integrated magnitude can be measured at about 7.33 and puts it in 12th place in the brightness list of all known globulars. A large number of variable stars populate M15. 112 of these stars have been discovered up to 1973. The great majority of these stars are short period variables of the RR Lyra class, all close to magnitude 15.9. He then goes on to describe a few of the things that have been discovered about M15. And let's see what he says at the end. Sharpley's original studies gave the distance of about 42,000 light years to M15, a value which has not been too radically revised since the 1930s. More recent measurements indicate that this globular cluster is likely to be at a distance of about 34,000 light years. And of course, it is possible in the 30 or 40 years that have passed since Burnham's work that those numbers have changed again. But as you can see, we're already beginning to collect a pretty good image here. We've got it in black and white currently. So I'm going to go to the histogram. We are pretty well, actually, we've got these controls in pretty much about the right position, both in terms of the main histogram and the display stretch. But I'm going to bring the color up. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, so here we have some, and I'm just going to ease. Let me just try and ease this control across a bit. I like to try and get this background speckling down a little bit, and I think that's probably about as far as where I want to go. So here we have M15 in all its glory. We've got this in color. We're pretty much color balanced because you can see that my red, blue, and green histograms are all falling very much on top of each other. We've got about 4 minutes of imaging so far, so I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to drop it into black and white. And I am going to save it again. And I can't show you the image that I took last night for 2x2 binning because I've already compared that image with a previous image I took of M15 on 1x1 binning. And without doubt, there is much more resolution in the 1x1 than there is in the 2x2. So for globular clusters, I can definitely say that you want to maximize the number of pixels that you've got available as opposed to maximize the sensitivity of the sensor itself. Right, so we've now looked at we've looked at a whole number of galaxies. We've looked at a globular cluster. So I am going to see if I can bring up something a little different. We've been running about, yes, so JR was saying that Burnham's Celestial Handbook, thanks to Google, Amazon search. Yes, you can definitely get a copy for about 40 to 45 bucks in good condition, and definitely recommend it. So I am going to let's take a look and see what else is around. Let's wander over to C9. Do I want to do that at the moment or not? Is there anything else in Pegasus that I want to take a look at? Just bear with me 1 second here where I have a quick flick through the pictures here, and I'll see if there's anything else in Pegasus I want to bring up. No, probably done for Pegasus. So I'm going to move back to the constellation I was at earlier, which is Cepheus. And again, I'm going straight to Burnham and flicking through. It's all arranged by constellations here, so I'm just getting to Cepheus. And somewhere in here, if I can remember what happened last night, there is, yes. Okay, let's try the diffuse nebula NGC 7023. Okay, so NGC 7023. Okay, that should be in Cepheus. It looks like I can just about see it. It's right on the edge of where my horizon should be. So let's swing the mount around. And are we gonna, nope, we're not doing a meridian flip. It's gonna come right down the meridian. This is where the E-finder comes in useful, particularly when you are, ooh, this is going to be close because as you can see, I've got a palm tree right here, and you can just see I've got a frond of the palm tree here. So I may or may not be able to see this, but we'll give it a shot. Right, so I need to go into the live stack. I need to change this to NGC 7. Oh, I forgot which target I was on. Let's go back into 7023. So 7023. pretty sure I imaged this last night. Let me get the target in the center. So I'll just do a plate solve. And I think you can probably see the benefit of plate solving this evening. I've done no mount alignment here at all. I didn't go through any sort of multi-star alignment. I did do a polar align about a week ago on the mount. I actually leave it outside assembled, and it's got a tent over it so that it kind of keeps the dew off it at night, and then just lift the tent off. Um, so it's roughly polar aligned, but there's been no multi-star alignment done at all. And of course, you would not be able to hit these targets as I'm hitting them without, doing a good bit of multi-star alignment if you weren't using plate solving. So I think we had enough sources there to plate solve. Let's see if it does. And it looks as though it probably isn't going to solve this. And I'm guessing the reason for that is because the fronds of the palm tree. Oh, it did. Okay, it looks like we did solve it. So the mount's just moving. Okay, so we should have the mount on target. So I'm going to clear the stack. I'm going to go back into color. And let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to clear the stack again. And we'll go from there. And I was kind of looking at this image and I was wondering why I was seeing that. And for some reason, I've dropped my dark and my light frames, and I'm not sure why that's happened. So let me go and capture those again. Because the dark and the light frames are going to be very helpful, particularly when you've got a faint target. So I've captured the dark frame, and now I need to capture the flat frame. So let me go and grab that. Flats and darks. Okay, and I need to reset my stack. Because if you apply flats and darks midway through the stacking process, usually things go badly wrong. So you need to reset the stack. So I've just done that. And to answer your question, Don, I'm using the All Sky plate solver. I don't think it's the fastest of the sort of wraparounds to the, because they all use the same standard sort of plate solving engine. But it's just one that I'm familiar with, and the fact that it takes 20 or 30 seconds to solve is fine because it just gives me a little break between targets, which is kind of helpful. So here we are. We are on NGC 7072. So let's go see what we got here. So we're going to need to move that. Okay. All right. I'm going to need to color balance because color is all over the place here at the moment. I didn't want to do that. Okay, let's color balance. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to have to go in and do some manual color balancing here because for some reason, okay, so as you can see, if you look at the display histogram, I'm just clicking on the red initially to pull the red back towards the white and the green. So the red is almost back. And now I'm just going to take the blue back towards the green. Probably going to have to give it a little bit more red. There we go. We look like we're about color balance now. I always try and get I always aim for the place where the um, histograms sort of overlap. I know some people don't do that, but it appears to work for me. So let me move this to here. And actually, I'm probably going to reset this for the time being because, yeah, that's better. So let's see what we got here. And unfortunately, because of the way that I've moved a couple of this one of the things that doesn't work 100% in SharpCap is that I've I've managed to got this window floating now, the live stack window, and so consequently it's covering my image, which is kind of annoying. So let me try and just get it adjusted, and then I'll move the image out of the way. Okay, so I think I might shift the blue back a smidgen. Okay, let's try and grab that and take it lower. Come on. All right, let's try and resize here. Okay. The trouble is, if I close this window, my live stacking is going to stop, and I'm going to lose control of the histogram, which is annoying. So I'm not in an ideal position at the moment. But you can see here that we have a reflection type nebula, and I'm not exactly 100% sure which one this is. So at this point, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go out to Wikipedia, and I'm going to go NGC 7023. Let's see what Wiki says, which tends to be my go-to source. Okay, so it's the Iris Nebula. I probably should have known that, or Caldwell 4, and it's a bright reflection nebula in the constellation of Cepheus. Um, and you can obviously see some somewhat better pictures of it if you pull up one of the astro images. But you can see even with EAA here, we are managing to pull a fair amount of detail out of it. And as Mike rightly said, it is the Iris Nebula. So let me, and this is one of the things I'm still not sure how to overcome. As you can see here, I'm trying to move this window and it won't let me, which is rather annoying. Let me try and shrink it or do something here. See, it's not allowing me. Oh, okay. So it's allowed me to shrink it a little bit. So that kind of helps. And I can still control my histogram from here. So let me just, okay, so not bad, not a great image of the Iris Nebula, but decent enough. I mean, certainly good enough for outreach. Um, Perhaps not good enough for, I'd prefer to see this from a dark sky site, but you can certainly see the reflection nebula area here with some of the surrounding uh, stuff. Okay, and anyway, going back to what I was saying, I do find once you've lost this thing is doesn't seem to or once this isn't associated with the other frames and it kind of gets lost like it is at the moment, it becomes a little difficult to control. So I typically at this point, although it's a bit kind of brute force, I will actually shut down SharkCap on the main camera and then restart it again just to get everything back in place. But before I do that, let me save this image just so that I got a record from this evening. Okay, so it looks like I've got a record now, so that's been saved. So I'm actually going to close this instance of SharpCap just so I can get these windows sorted back out again, unless anybody on chat has got a good idea of what I need to do at this point to get this window associated back in with the rest of these things so that everything moves together. Okay, and I'm not seeing anything on chat at the moment, so I'm gonna go the brute force method. So I'm just gonna close SharpCat down on that camera, and I'm going to restart it. And actually, this is useful in so much as one of the other features of SharpCat that I do use is profiles. So when I start SharpCat up and I select my camera, I then go over to the capture profiles. I will then select 333MC DSO, which is my profile, and I will load that. And that will typically start the camera up in the mode that I want it. So RAW 16, full capture area, 1x1 binning, 12-second exposures. These are the balance controls. The gain is set to 400. The only thing it doesn't do is bring in the dark and the flat. So I'll just go and grab those again. And you'll notice with the dark that it's actually the length of the dark in terms needs to correspond in seconds with the length of the sub that you're shooting. Pick my flat. So we've got those in place now. So all we need now is another target. So let me go, let's just zoom in here. We'll take a quick look at the Veil network, Nebula, out here and see if it images. It didn't image particularly well last night. This tends to suit a dark sky a little bit better, but we've got it's in our area, so let's go and take a quick look over there. And this is my favorite side of the Veil network. This is the one where the star sits in the middle of the, I think it's the western veil. So we're on target. Let's go to SharpCap again. Okay, we're clear of the trees, although you can see actually I'm actually fairly close to my roof line here. You can see the roof line here, so I haven't got too much to play with here. I am then going to go into my main camera. I'm gonna go and plate solve. And we'll grab that. And just while we're waiting for this to plate solve and move into position, just to let you know, the event's already announced on cloudy nights, but next Monday at 8 p.m. Myself and Dave Decker, who is the outreach coordinator for the San Diego Astronomy Association, will be doing a live stream from the top of Mount Helix, which is one of the very sort of iconic landmarks in San Diego. It's pretty much in the center of the city, but it's got a pretty awesome view in most directions. And we're actually going to be set up next to the massive Great Cross that sits on the top of Mount Helix. So if any of you have got the opportunity to join us for a live stream in a week's time, that would be fantastic. Right, so I've moved on target. I'm now going to start my live stack, and we're looking at the western veil here. So, and I probably spelled that wrong. Yeah, everything's running a little slowly tonight. I'm gonna have to look at this PC. Oh, what's going on there? Everything is definitely not running quite as I would like it this evening. So I think I might make this my last target just because things are not going 100%. But let's see. Okay, all right. So we're going to so things are going to work here. At least they're going to work well enough to finish the evening. Okay, not too bad. So let's see if we can start capturing a few images here. And you can see as we capture frames and they begin to stack, that the background noise drops away, the speckling drops away. And yeah, it looks like we're going to be able to capture a good deal. If we let this stack for 10 or so frames, we'll get a nice view of the structure on this end of the Western Veil, which is one of my favorite targets. When I first started out with EAA, and I was doing quite a lot of work next to Dave. He has a 16-inch Dob, and so he was viewing it visually, in which case it looked, I guess, pretty much like this, although I would probably argue that it probably wasn't quite as clear in terms of being able to see the structure. But of course, since you've got lots of time to sort of pursue this with your eye, it kind of makes it easy. But certainly you didn't see the color. It's been an interesting exercise to compare the EAA with what you can achieve with a big Dob or similar. Um, and so we often sort of will view next to each other just so that we can look at similar targets and so forth and so on. So we're beginning to grab some of this image now. Appreciate everybody hanging on for as long as we've gone now. We've been running about an hour and a half, so it's probably a good point to call it a day. So I will make this my last image. Just going to bring the red level down a smidgen. Got a little bit of spillover. Here we go. So it's beginning to look better. Just take the black down a little bit. Let's come out of the zoom. Okay. Oh, and interestingly enough, now you can see that this window. Oh, because I came back in, right? I restarted SharpCap. So as you can see now, this window is now back and sort of associated with its other window. So if I hit this pin button here, I can actually auto hide this stacking window, and this makes this kind of full screen, which I'll do in a couple of minutes. So let's just take a look in here. I'm going to use my shift to slow the movement of this down. I'm going to drag the black across just a smidgen. Yeah, might even drag the midpoint back. I think I might be happy with that. Let's go to auto. Okay, let's pin that. Okay, so as you can see here, we have a fairly decent rendition of what is the middle part of the Witch's Broom in the Western Vale. Unfortunately, because I'm using a relatively small field of view, when I had my C6 with the focal reducer, it actually allowed you to see just a little bit more, so that you could actually, really see the Witch's Broom shape here. But obviously, we're, a little bit zoomed in a little bit more here. But even so, you can see some really nice structure in the nebulosity associated with this part of the Western Vale. And I'm sure if I spent perhaps a little bit more time on the stacking here, let's see if I can perhaps just improve it a little bit more. Let's see if that does. May have gone a little bit too far now. I've got plenty of dark here, but I've lost some of the red in here and some of the green. But as you can see, again, you at least get a nice representation of the twisting sort of rope-like nature of this part of the Western Veil. Okay, beautiful. Um, does a narrowband filter help? Possibly. The only problem with that is that you obviously pay for exposure time, and you haven't got a lot of exposure time available to you in EAA anyway, because I'm using a really, cheap mount. I bought it secondhand and it was pretty tired when I bought it. So about 12-second subs is all I can really achieve. So yes, it probably would help in some respects, but you're going to have to stack a lot more images in order to suck the fewer photons out and make a picture Don. And Jim, yeah, okay on the binning lesson. Well, I'm not sure if it's a lesson, but certainly it's more anecdotal experience at the moment, and I've certainly got a little bit more work here to do on that. So I think that's where we'll leave it this evening. I really appreciate everybody joining, particularly at such a short notice. The video will be up on YouTube in probably the next hour or so as well. So it will be available for review if you want. And obviously, if you've got any questions or anything, please feel free to contact me through either my Facebook page, the YouTube channel, or through Cloudy Nights, where I tend to post regularly in the EAA forum. But it's been fun chatting to you guys this evening, and I look forward to the next live stream, which will be next Monday from Mount Helix. If any of you have got the time to join, that will be fantastic, and I'll look forward to catching up with you again. But I will say good evening from a warm and relatively muggy San Diego, and I will call it a day, assuming that I can. Oh, here we go. Let's see if this. Assuming that I can actually manage to close this stream down, because as you know earlier, I was having problems, and I don't really just want to delete the browser in the hope that that closes YouTube down. But as you can see, it's certainly not. Oh, here we go. Maybe we're going to be responding here. So anyway, from a fairly muggy evening, it's probably still about 75 degrees here in San Diego. I will say good evening to you, and I look forward to catching up with you again. And thanks so much for joining me. Night.